Hello everyone, welcome to UCSP lesson number 2, and we will be discussing regarding the acquiring culture, aspects of culture, and cultural relativism. And we have the modes of acquiring culture. There are 3 types of acquiring culture, and we have Enculturation, Acculturation, and Assimilation. Let us first talk about Enculturation, where it is the process by which people learn the dynamics of their surrounding culture and acquire values and norms appropriate or necessary to that culture and its worldviews. So, when we say Enculturation, it is where a person acquires, absorbs, and learns the culture and its ways. So, starting from the smallest unit of the society, the family is the starting point of enculturation. However, there are also cases where enculturation can be self-initiated, where a person observes and practices the necessary feature of that culture. So, for example, here in the picture, it is practiced by most Filipino parents to model and teach their sons and daughters household chores as they get older in order to equip with the skills necessary for future living. Because when we say household chores, these are for real world situation. They need to survive, so they need to learn household chores. Another example is the practice of manopo, where it can be self-initiated or taught by the parents. Some child will observe other people who is practicing manopo and mimic what they see or saw, while the other child will be guided and modeled by their parents on how to give respect to adults and elderly people. Next one is Acculturation. So, acculturation is a process of social, psychological, and cultural change that stems from the balancing of 2 cultures while adapting to the prevailing culture of the society. So, the difference of acculturation to enculturation is, let's have this example. So, the terms is also used to refer to the result of such changes. 2 major types of acculturation is incorporation and directed change. So they may be distinguished on the basis of the conditions under which cultural contact and change takes place, just like this example here in the picture. So for incorporation, just like the OFWs trying to learn the culture of foreign countries, or the foreign internationals present here in our country is trying to learn our culture, meaning they are balancing their own culture and trying to learn our culture or trying to learn other culture, but without sacrificing their prevailing culture. So that is incorporation of culture, since there is only free will in learning the culture. But for directed change, if you still remember the Byzantine Empire, the extension of Western Roman Empire in the East, during the peak of its empire, Christianity flourished and spread within its territories. Especially, Byzantine Empire lies in between Europe and Asia. However, when the Ottoman Turks invade the Constantinople, everything about the Byzantine Empire and Christianity crumbles, as the Ottomans are Muslims and their practices and culture take over the invaded territories, replacing the ways of Christianity. So this implies that directed change is caused by utilizing force, power, or authority in learning the said culture. Next one is assimilation. So assimilation in anthropology and sociology is the process whereby individuals or groups of differing ethnic heritage are absorbed into the dominant culture of a society. So in our example here, minorities and migrants often resort to integrate and assimilate the outside culture and forgetting their own culture due to many factors, which results from socialization, social media platforms, and trends in the society. Just like in the picture, cultural assimilation occurs when an ethnic minority sacrifices its own culture to integrate into society. So, the difference of assimilation to acculturation is people are using the outside culture while sacrificing their own culture. What is the effect of Korean culture now to the many Filipinos? Filipino fans are learning the Korean culture while sacrificing their own Filipino culture, trying to be part of the Korean society, even plastic surgeries, which is kind of normal in South Korea. Filipino fans are trying to look like Koreans. Clothings, music, food, and even the Hangul language, Filipino fans are slowly replacing their own original culture to the overpowering Korean pop. So that is assimilation. While when we say acculturation, we are balancing two cultures while your own culture is still there or is still present. While in enculturation, we are gaining, absorbing, and learning our own culture. And now we will be having the aspects of culture. So first aspect is dynamic, flexible, and adaptive. So this basically means culture interact and change. It changes based on the current situation of our society, which means that culture is subject to constant change because of its dynamic characteristics, giving the idea that even when culture does change based on the current situation, these changes will always be important. And culture continuously restores itself, so it will remain relevant. The second aspect of culture is it is shared, contested, and challenged. As we share culture with others, we are able to act in appropriate ways as well as predict how others will act. Despite the shared culture, that doesn't mean that culture is homogeneous. If culture is learned and shared, it is also contested in different ways and situations. So, knowing the culture of other group or race will give the idea that there are practices that is not the same with your practices, which means you need to respect their own ways because culture is not homogeneous. However, there are instances where practices or a certain part of culture is viewed as dangerous to other people. After learned through socialization and enculturation, we will have pattern social interactions. Because culture as normative system has the capacity to define and control human behavior. Social interactions can help us filter the parts of our culture that we learned so that we can define what suits us and what does not. So, in pattern social interactions, there is no perfect culture, and even culture of first world countries has its own flaws. So, through interactions and socialization, we choose what culture can be helpful to us and disregard the practices that is not helpful to us. Next would be aspect of culture that is integrated. So when we say integrated, it is known as holism, or the various parts of culture being interconnected and interlinked. Any changes in the culture can ultimately affect another part of the culture. So, when we say integrated, when there is a change of certain part of culture, it will also affect the other parts of the culture like a domino effect. Every changes that we make, even a part of this culture is being changed or modified, then it will also affect the whole culture. Next is the cultural relativism, ethnocentrism, and Sinocentrism. So, these pictures I presented here are associated with these three ideas of culture. So, first is the cultural relativism, where it is the principle that an individual's human belief and activities should be understood by others in terms of that individual's own culture. So, cultural relativism is where we should view and understand that every culture is equal. Every culture has its own uniqueness and commonalities, and every part of one's culture can be the same of other culture, but with different interpretations and practices. Just like here in this picture, races or groups have their own understanding and idea of beauty. For Africans, practices like scarification and lip plating are being expressed to let the public know about their achievements and also the idea of beauty for them. In Thailand, the Kayan people, especially women, are practicing the neck elongation. It is one of the body modification that expresses their idea of beauty. While in Korea, plastic surgery has recently become part of their culture, a normal way of living. As plastic surgeries are promoting the enhancement of their beauties, which is in this picture, it literally shows the big changes that this woman has gone through. Now, we need to respect other people's culture because we might end up practicing this one, the ethnocentrism, where it is the tendency to see and evaluate other cultures in terms of one race, nation, and culture. This rests on the belief that one's own culture is superior to other culture. So if you know about the KKK of America, you can already pinpoint what are some of their ideas that they are promoting for. So, the KKK or the Ku Klux Klan were associated with the ideas of the white supremacy that campaigns for the superiority of white people over the other racial groups. The Klan were initiating violence, especially to those Africans and Black Americans. Another example is the Sinocentrism. Sinocentrism is the idea of ancient China, where they believe that China is the center of the earth and thinking that Chinese are above all other races, while outside of China are lower than them. Aside from that, we also have Adolf Hitler, who also exercised the idea of ethnocentrism as he maneuvered the thoughts of the Nazis, proclaiming that Jewish people are descendants of the Semitic people, while Germans are superior to the Jewish people because Germans are descendants of the Aryan race. Because of that, Hitler decided to eradicate the race of Jews as he launched the Holocaust, or literally means the genocide. After ethnocentrism, we have now the opposite of ethnocentrism, which is the Xenocentrism. So, Xenocentrism means the preference for the products, styles, or ideas of someone else's culture rather than of one's own. Filipinos are praising the culture of foreign countries. For example, the American lifestyle, the Korean culture, or the Chinese way of life. Many are fans of Korean idols. Many believe that China would be a great ally for the Philippines. And many Filipinos are highly motivated to work in the United States because of the American way of living is not the same here in the Philippines. So that ends our discussion with this lesson 2.